Welcome to Midday Repartee. This is Rot and Glory, joined today by my Tuesday co-host Anthony Figueroa, creator of God's Hand. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing great, man. I can never say enough about the intro.
Nice.
I love the intro. I really think I'm gonna have to get with you, man.
Yeah,
and have me work one for my
absolutely,
intro.
Man.
Every
Dude,
time I hear that intro.
You got the imagery to work with. That'd be fun, man. Yeah, let's hook that up.
Let me start off by just saying welcome, everybody. Make sure you hit the subscribe button and make sure you share. Anything helps out right here. So we want to get this blown up, and we want to create this as a new flagship, right? That everybody comes to and we can all launch up. So
nice, man. No, I appreciate that. And I'm pretty bad about asking people, reminding people to do that.
I know, that's why I do it for you, brother. That's why I do it for you, man.
Yeah, I always feel, I don't know. I
never do.
Over
so
that.
I'm
yeah.
just
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thanks everybody in the chat for being here. Like Anthony said, if you can share out this stream, this is a tough one for me. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not coming at this. It's like I think my ego has been put in its place in 2020.
Good.
I gotta say that, man, because
that's good.
Just an increasing awareness, some knowledge, and I credit. And I've been giving him a lot of credit lately, and I'm going to continue to do so. But Owen Benjamin is somebody I've been listening to lately. I'm going to drop he's running his live streams off of D-Live right now because they've kicked him off of pretty much everything else. You can find, there are people on YouTube that are dropping his stuff on YouTube for him. There's some channels out there you can find his stuff on YouTube for sure. But D-Live they're letting him do his thing.
What's the official press on why they're kicking him off? What's the official press?
Well, it's very similar to the ComicsGate thing. He's been called everything under the sun. He's a Nazi. He's a white supremacist. He spreads hate speech. All of it.
Mm-hmm.
Never ends. So yeah, even Patreon, which is booted him a while back, but he's on the verge of winning a big case with a bunch of his people. They did a class action lawsuit against Patreon.
Patreon's in trouble. That shifts in their favor, dude. Patreon, because I think isn't Sargon of Akkad? He had one as well.
I believe there's a bunch, dude. If this will set a precedent, dude. Yeah, it's big, and it's not just Patreon. That's going to be like a ripple that goes out across the internet and kind of signals to these companies that, look, you can't do this. You can't just decide who gets to use these platforms and who doesn't.
Yeah, I remember now. It's not just Sargon and them. I think if I can remember, it's been a while, but it's actually the subscribers who actually have the better case, because they're saying that they were damaged in that you prevented me. They're the ones that have the case, and if they pull that off, it dominoes into everybody else. I heard about this a couple months ago.
Yeah, and it's looking good. The last I heard, it's looking real good. Like, I think.
It doesn't matter. Love you.
I love you too.
Aww, nice. There it is, man. That's good shit. So yeah, Owen's really, he's tough though. If you're happy with where you're at, if you're plugged into everything going on in the world, and you like the way things are, where you can you don't have to be responsible for the things in your life like food and protection, and you want to offload that to, don't listen to Owen Benjamin, because he's gonna make you feel like shit. And he does, dude. There are times when I'm just like, "Ow, damn, that hurt." Listening to this is painful because it gets right at the things you are failing on. And I'm failing on some
You are
things.
a better man than me, brother.
It's tough, dude.
It
But
is.
like,
That's why I never did it.
yeah, dude, it's like not that long ago, I was the guy who was easily smoking a pack of cigarettes a day. I was drinking to get drunk, 3, 4, 5 times a week,
Mhm.
and that's done with, man. Like that, he really, the way he frames some shit and makes you see it, it's not, it doesn't work until it's literally something you do not want to do. Like it's not just it's for my health. I want to be more healthy. It's
It's
like you
tough.
literally
That's
have to
tough.
be in your brain like these are things that I do not want to engage anymore. Like it's done. And once you have it framed in a way where it clicks with you in your mind, it's like it becomes real easy to stop. So I
I had that happen to me, except it was like a extreme hyper accelerated accelerated situation. But it's, you know what I mean. That's why I see a better man than me, because I mean I went through all that, but I had to be forced by a gun, essentially, to seek out um, a solution. Because my solution was just to get loaded. You know what I
mm-hmm.
mean? And because it's tough, because you don't you don't really know what's wrong,
Yeah.
right? So you have a sneaking suspicion that there is something wrong, but you think that you can philosophize yourself out. You think, hey, Blue Teddy, you think you can think your way out. You think you can buy your way out. You think you can drink your way out. You think you can fuck your way out. You think that somehow what's wrong is, and this is like the real ball of it, that something externally has gone wrong, and that is what is has you off
Mm,
kilter.
right.
And it's like, and so it's this sad thing that you spend your whole life seeking out these things to make you feel okay, and you've missed the entire point. You've missed, and it's crazy, because it's old knowledge, it's old wisdom. It's
Always,
about the
man.
dragon within. Conquering
Yeah.
the dragon within
Sure.
is way more about true battle to fight than any dragon you may meet outside the body. And we were just talking about this before, the hero's journey, going down into the cave, going down into the underworld, going down into your darkness, into your shadow,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and really taking stock of what's there. It's no one thinks that. No one. You're never taught that. You're never taught that. You're taught, well, if you have the right guy, the right girl, the right job, the right car, the right house, the right this, then you'll be successful. Then you'll be happy. And then what happens is we go about doing that. And what happens is that some of us tend to be a bit more sensitive than others. And and that's the only way. I have no other real. When I boil it down to its simplest form, I really don't have anything else to
Yeah.
say about it, other than some folks are more sensitive than others to the lack of spiritual anchorage. Like you know
Yeah.
something's wrong, but you don't. It's a subconscious thing, which I have a theory on that too, which we'll get into. But it's like, and so nobody thinks, well, let me go internally and look, let me go inside.
Well,
It's
and,
like,
and we are
yeah.
kind of we're really conditioned to always look to the external for some solution, right? Or and that's I think that is a big part of the problem. Um, it's constant, like that next thing, or what I find myself doing a lot in my I don't have an ideal situation for being creative, for producing work that I want to produce. My environment isn't what I want it to be, right? So it's like when I get there, when I get to that place, that then I can do it. And it's just constant, like when I get there, then I
That
can
is
become the man I want to be. And it's like, no, dude, if you can be the man you want to be in every moment, every day, all the time, don't let those
that's
excuses
a that's
be
a
there. Don't do it.
that is a prevailing thought, a prevailing idea, that you really have to spend time with it to understand why it's detrimental and why it's dangerous. Um, because if you seek, specifically if you're seeking some type of spiritual relief, right? Because at the core of, and again, this is just These are things to which I have experienced and things to which I've been mainly taught, then applied, then experienced, right? So I didn't make any of this shit up. Okay, I stole everything I'm telling you right now, right? So the heart of spirituality, right, is this idea of refinement, right, simplicity, right, and what you're doing is you're trying to shed all these noises, right,
Mm-hmm.
which could be identities, can be whatever, but you're trying to shed all these noises, and you're trying to get to the core tune. What is at the core tune, right? And the core tune can only be heard in the moment. It can only be heard in the moment. And if you try to capture the tune, if you try to remember the language of the tune or anything like this, you've lost it. So it's really about the moment. So one of the ways that you find yourself to the moment is detachment, right? And again, all this stuff sounds really, really complicated. And again, it can be, but it isn't, right? So it's simple, not easy, but simple. And so the idea is that to get to the core tune, I need to shed these other frequencies.
Yeah.
These other frequencies are essentially they're the things which I am attached to. So how do I get rid of my attachments, right? Well, the attachments are based on, well, I'm attached to them because they have some value to me, right? Not spiritual value, but they have value to me. But who are they valuable to? They're valuable to my identity. They're valuable to these frequencies. But when I tune them down, they're not valuable. Well, how do I cut through that? Simplest thing is I need gratitude and humility, right? Gratitude and humility is what brings me to everything that is in my life, whatever it is I have, exists by grace alone. Therefore, it frees me of, I don't have to maintain this stuff because it's not really me who put all this stuff together. There's a lot of dumb luck that came through this because there's a lot of people who are better than me who've done the same things as me and ended up worse than me, right? So I have to get past this idea that I'm so fucking smart and so fucking good. And when I can get kind of to this, when I take stock of my life, me personally, when I look down in there, I should either be in a box or a cage, right? That's the reality of the situation. I can tell you a bunch of stories that shouldn't have went down the way that it went down, bro. You okay? Right. Yet I'm not there. Why? It's nothing I did, right? So if I'm seeking out this spiritual relationship, I start there. So what happens is I realize that there's something else out there, right?
Yeah.
When I realized gratitude and humility, what that does is it cuts me off from my past, right? In a way that I no longer regret it, because if I didn't have it, I wouldn't be here seeking this new path, right? I needed all those scars. And then I don't want any future because I realized that, hell, I don't have any power over that anyways, right? And if I do have power over it, I really only have the power to destroy. I don't necessarily have the power to create harmony. I don't know how to create harmony. I can create chaos and destruction. So it brings me to this present moment, and then I seek what I am looking for here in the present, because this is all I have. I mean, God forbid, and again, anything's possible. A car comes off the street, jumps the curb, and comes through that wall right there and runs me over and kills me. Like I don't have it. I'm not promised anything. All I have is right here in this moment. So that becomes the core of it. How do I get to the moment? How do I get to these things? And to bring it back to what you're saying, why that whole thing of when I get here, I'll be okay. When I get that, I'll be okay. When I have the problem with that is I can never, ever be humble nor grateful if that's where my head is. Because what I'm ultimately saying is what I have right now is not enough. What God, Buddha, the spirits, the universe, the fates have given me and graced me, it's not enough. It's not good enough.
Yeah.
But however, when I have that material, finite, in decay thing over there, then I'll be okay. Then right. I'll be, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And that is, this is a big component of this, but I do want to bring it to this zone of, we've all seen this image. This is an iconic image of our day, right? This is what some people would say is Trump derangement syndrome. right? And
Uh-huh.
yeah, dude, I was on board early on in ComicsGate, and I still do. I get enjoy going after the SJWs, doing that whole thing. A lot of entertainment in that, and obviously the SJW crowd is there's an insanity there. There's a level. There's an irrational through
Yes.
line on all this stuff that they're doing. It's all
Mhm.
it's insane. It's wrong. It's bullshit, and it can be very fun going out them. But then there's this realization like, okay, let's start asking some tougher questions. Why do they exist?
Hmm.
Why are they in the world? Why are there so many women who feel a need to engage extreme feminism and why are the SJWs? Why are they in force? Why are they out there? And it's like, okay, maybe it's a failing. Maybe men have not done their job, right? Maybe, and I'm putting myself right there, and I'm telling you, I have failed as a man in this world. I have not behaved correctly as a man in this world, and until I can take responsibility for that, until I can start being honest about it with myself and the people around me, I'm gonna keep fucking it up. And that's where I'm at that place where it's like, it's time, man. It's time to, the bullshit has to end. What's going on in the world is making that very clear. You might have been able to survive with some bullshit in your life up to this point, but it's about to get a little bit more real out there. And if you're not grounded, if you're not being honest with yourself, man, the next few years, they're going to get real messy for you, real messy. And that, I include myself in that. And I got a lot of work to do, man. Got a lot of work to do to get
That's
myself
great.
where I need to be. And it's
That's
like, I'm
great.
happy. I'm happy it's happening. I'm happy that I've been exposed and that I'm willing to open myself up to it, to even accept it and look at it and see it. But it's like, dude, things are going to get hard for some people out there, man.
Let me
For a
let
lot
me
of us.
let me challenge you real quick because you what you're saying is good and you're on point. I just don't want you to.
Yeah.
I hear a lot, but I'm going to challenge you and tell you this because this is something that we see a lot, we address a lot is understanding the concept. And it'll take you years of wrestling with this, but when it sets and it kind of sets in, you'll realize the value of it. And I know you've heard these things before, but it's like, understand it isn't about the destination. It is about the journey. Therefore, the destination is the journey. Where you are right now is right where you're supposed to be. That frame of I need to look inwards to figure out what's wrong with me. That's the place to be. There is no arrival. There is
Right.
no you understand what I'm saying? Because that's what and they had
Yeah.
to drill that into me that look, if you anytime whenever you become well, there's a problem. There's your issue, right? And that and so they drill into us that we have a daily reprieve contingent upon the maintenance of our spiritual condition. And so you understand that each it's a daily thing, right? But that in the beginning it can seem like a fucking grind. Excuse me. It can seem like a grind. I'm sorry. It can seem like a grind. The wolf down some fruit. It can seem like a grind, But there comes a point when you understand that is the path I'm on. Is where I'm supposed to be. And at any given moment, this is where I'm supposed to be. Back to the moment, back to the now. Here it is. This is where I'm supposed to be. So, who's that? Is that Russ?
Russ is in the chat. Absolutely.
Ask Russ if he wants to come in. He seems like he would have something to say on this topic.
Yeah, man. I was gonna keep. I wanted to keep the show fairly clean this time.
Gotcha.
But yeah, dude, Russ.
I'm sorry. I'm messing shit up.
No,
Not
at all. I agree with you. I think Russ would have a lot of great things to drop on this topic.
I think again, it's why I say that you're a better man than me is, and I mean that. I really do, because you're seeking these things out, and I don't want to swell up your ego because we're trying to bring it down.
That's how. Yeah, that ain't gonna happen.
But
yeah,
there is a virtue in what you're doing, right? And that's the difference. Whatever spiritual experiences that I've come across, whatever spiritual experiences and changes and knowledge that I've come across, is not out of virtue. And this is a key element to how I keep my feet on the ground, right? It's not a virtue. It's because if I don't seek out these things, I will die a miserable death, and I will harm and scar the people who matter the most to me. And I don't want to do that. And so I seek out these things at my core, not out of virtue, right?
Yeah.
Not out of virtue. It's really self-preservation. It just so happens that what I suffer from forces me to seek out spiritual solutions. And so it's and so I engage with it in a way that's like, because if I'm just a regular guy on the street and I go to church, I'm good, right? But if I don't go to church, I mean, I'm okay. It's not going to kill you in a miserable ass way.
Right.
So it's a path. And again, I will tell you that if you're serious, to me, if you're serious about spiritual development, if I have to be brutally honest with you, taking the 12 steps and applying them and working them, to me, and I say this, and I'm really not hyperbolic, and I get a little bit sometimes nervous talking about this stuff because it's not a joke, because it's serious, and whatnot. But to me, one of the greatest gifts that mankind ever got was the 12 steps, because the 12 steps have taken all the principles and the philosophies of spirituality, which they've acquired from religions, and they pulled the spiritual principles out and then codified it into a way that if you follow this, right? So it's like, if you look at the last 12 step, it says, having had a spiritual awakening as the result of working the steps. The result of working the steps is not taking a drink, not taking a drug. That's not the result. Yeah. It is a byproduct, but the result is a spiritual experience or a spiritual awakening. Yeah. And and that's the best I can do.
Yeah, man. And when we talk spiritual awakening, I really do. I equate that with a moral awakening, with morality coming in. Because this is, I think, a lot of the suffering we're seeing and that we're going to see coming up is people just not having any moral anchor. And again, I feel like you can interchange spirituality and morality. They're kind of one and the same. And if you don't,
I think you can.
If you in times like this right now, my personal opinion, my belief is that there is no deadly coronavirus, right? It's a figment. It's being projected by a corrupt system onto people, and it's the people's choice to either agree with the corrupt system that there is a deadly thing out there killing people, and we need to be very, very extreme in our reaction to it and protect ourselves. Now, to me, that choice fundamentally, in a lot of ways, and again, I agree with Owen on this, is that the lack of morality in our lives. If we're living without morality, no anchor to morality in our lives, we're very susceptible to, we're very weak, and we will go along with a lot of nonsense because we're afraid, we're not anchored to anything, and we assume that people around us are not moral. That creates fear, right? You want to be surrounded by people that you believed and know to be moral. That's where wealth is, man. That's where safety is. Being surrounded by moral people makes you safe. Not police, not a government. Morality is what creates safety, people. And when you're looking around at people putting face masks on their children and engaging this thing the way they are, and churches even doing it, you see the lack of leadership, you see the lack of morality involved, and you go, oh shit, there's a lack of morality around me, and this is making me very unsafe. Does that make sense?
No, I think your observations are correct. It's tough because when you're making I know when I make observations, I try to keep them as general as possible because I have a habit of wanting to attribute motive to things. And I have to be very wary of that because then again, I'm no better than the people who are perpetrating that type of stuff. One of the things is bad faith. And I think this is a byproduct of what's been going on in the last couple of years. Social media hasn't helped it. All this backwards ass doublespeak shit hasn't helped it. But if you listen to people who have, no, and I say spiritual compass, and the reason I say that is, the morality is a code, right? So for me, how I interact with that is that it's a code or a philosophy, right? But the problem is I don't have the power to adhere to that code and that philosophy. So this is why I say spiritual, because my relationship with my higher power is what enables me to adhere to this thing, because I don't have the power to do that. You leave me on my own, dude, and I'm just going to be like I said, I'm going to have good intentions and I'm going to want to do good things, but at the end of the day, I can't shake the feeling that I need to take care of myself. Yeah. Make sure I have enough food, enough shelter, enough, and then once I fix that, then I want money, then I want women, then I want and the problem is I'm trying to acquire security off of a system that is in constant decay. There is no security in these things, so it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's a perpetual motion. So that's why I kind of break those things up, and I say, okay, so for me, it's spiritual. If I have that spiritual compass, then it allows me access to these moral ways, because it allows me to engage with that stuff. I think you're dealing with these people that I think, and that's the problem is looking at the situation, making an observation, and then not attributing motive is kind of gives me the clearest picture that I can kind of muster together. When I look out and I look at when I look at the coronavirus thing, like what I see is that the coronavirus is real. It can kill people. But then it starts to become really murky, because you start to get this notion that the parameters of coronavirus are been hijacked and are now being used to control people. And so how am I supposed to have faith in that and trust that when you're giving me information that is in direct conflict with what my eyes and my common sense are telling me? Then when you're showing me these hints of you can't go here because of coronavirus, however, you can go on the streets and riot, then I get to like, well, how am I supposed to take that seriously? Like, wait a minute, is this not all the way in? What are we doing here? And then you start to realize there's a lot of murkiness past that, so you don't know. I really do suspect that come 2021, when you get the total death counts in for the entire year, you're going to see that no, there isn't an additional 250 to 300,000 deaths. That it's going to be on par with the increases that have been coming year after year. Correct. Because all these people who are dying from high blood pressure, heart disease, they're going to die, and they're going to die regardless of COVID or not. And so when all of that fucking dies down, I'm telling you, people are going to get pissed, because they're going to go, yo, man, you just topped out at probably, they're going to top, honestly, if I'm probably 2 million, I'm going to call it now 2,900,000, right? Mm-hmm. Give or take, but around that, which is slightly elevated from the year before, but from 14 to 18, you had a slight elevation, but you had a population elevation. Yeah. So if you have a population elevation from 21 to 20, or from 19 to 20, you'll have a little rise, but nothing. But again, if you go by what the numbers are telling you, and everybody's saying 200,000 people COVID killed, blah, 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 all this kind of shit like this, then you should have an additional 250,000 bodies on your hand. You're not going to have that.
Correct.
And I think when that pops off again, it doesn't mean coronavirus isn't real. It doesn't mean that it won't kill the highly vulnerable. It doesn't mean any of that. It doesn't mean that it won't kill healthy people.
Any
Correct.
influenza will do the same.
Correct.
There are going to be, I think there will be elevated deaths coming soon, brought to you by irrational lockdowns, people not taking care of themselves, people are drinking more, people are isolating, they're not socializing, they're not eating correctly, they're not getting physical exercise, they're not going to the doctor for the things they should be going to the doctor for. There will be deaths. There's going to be people dying, and it's going to be attributed to COVID, which is just it's a feedback loop of nonsense. And I don't know if they're going to be able to
I don't know if they're going to be able to put those numbers up though. I think at the end of the year, people are going to expect to see an additional 300,000 deaths.
It's
and I don't think
it's
going to be there.
Yeah, it'll be up to the people, as it has been from the outside of this, to either accept it or not accept it. Now, here's the problem: is that if you're, this is just bringing it back to this topic at hand, right? If you're living in a weakened state, if you're highly reliant on all of these systems, corrupt systems, to sustain your life, and you're addicted to not taking responsibility for yourself, which I am one of those people. I'm putting myself in this category. I am in a weakened state, but I'm aware of it. I'm looking at it, and I'm trying to course correct. But what I'm saying is, people will accept whatever they're told, the numbers, because they are scared that they won't get what they need to survive.
Correct.
Okay? That's why it's so important not to be in that weakened place. So when nonsense comes along, you can call it nonsense and not be afraid that you will no longer have access to food or the things you need for survival. This is why it's so important for us to live moral, to trust each other, to know each other, to have communities that are strong and self-reliant. Because then when nonsense comes around, we just go, dude, get the fuck out of here. We've got no use for you. Right?
Again, no. Listen, you run into a few issues, right? So these are subjects that I've wrestled with for a couple of years now. And so it's like you run into a few issues. Like, so at the core of the problem right now, right? So I mean, one of the cores of the problems right now is that you have people who have a mistrust with, or a misunderstanding that is encased in frustration and anger and resentment for God and religion and Christianity and stuff like that. And it's hard to go to someone and talk to them about religion and things like that, because it's just hard. Because eventually, even if you're talking about spirituality, like eventually you have to mention the word God, right? And what happens is that what you find is that most people, when you mention the word God, immediately envision someone else's interpretation of God. And it's an interpretation that they don't agree with. That's what's funny. They don't agree with it. And so immediately we have this thing that says there is a principle which bars against any growth that will keep a man in everlasting and utter ignorance, and it's contempt prior to investigation. And so what happens is that's part of the original issue. Like, people, when they hear spirituality, God, anything like that, they imagine the worst possible encounters that they've had and immediately go, I'm not interested in that. Right?
Right.
I'm not interested in that shit.
Yeah.
Because they've all been accosted by Jehovah's Witnesses. They've more than likely, everyone's been told they're going to hell because they're not perfect or whatever the fuck it is. So, and everyone's seen supposed religious people behave terribly. Right. And so there's all that's there, and it's hard. And that's why I was saying that, because I've spent a lot of time thinking about this, that you can't get caught in the knots. You can't get caught in the tanglements. What you can do is kind of, you have to go about um, disarming people almost. But the way you disarm them is you recognize their pain, right? And so you have to go with some givens. But in my experience, and this is my truth, and when I see it this way, like it's and you don't have to agree with it. That's the other thing. Like I'm not really there to convert. I'm not really here to convert people. I'm not really here to sell you. What I'm here is to give you an alternate explanation and see if you're interested in it. Yeah. See if this addresses things to which you yourself cannot account for. And so if God is everything, and again, to throw it out there, my interpretation of God in the simplest form is that God is the flame, He is the fire, and from the fire comes the embers. All right, and so there's embers that come off the flame. Right now, if you walk around a fire, as you walk around the fire looks different from every angle that you walk around it. It doesn't look the same from any one side, in any one place, at any one moment in time, but it's the same flame. So as all we carry these embers inside of us, they're all from the same flame. They look a little different. They come from a different place, right? But they're all the same spark, right? So if that holds to be true, and again, it does for me, but if that holds to be true, right, then at the end of the day, what happens is then that means that I knew God at one time, because God's a part of me, right? And so when I come to this world, if I don't live as if God is real, then I'm living in a denied reality, then I'm living in a suppressed reality, then I'm living in a deprived reality, right? And so what that does is it causes a fucking wound on the inside. And this is where I was telling you, some of us are more sensitive to it than others. Some of us are very, very sensitive to it, and it causes us to go crazy, right? For individuals like myself, we turn to substances and whatnot, because when I take that substance in my system, that hurt goes away. And all of a sudden, I think this is what's been missing. What I don't realize is that I am substituting what it feels like to stand in the presence of God, right? And I think that's the answer, right?
Interesting.
So
yeah.
what you're ultimately, at the end of the day, what you are doing is you're saying, okay, so if that be true, then what I know it, because you were mentioning the SJWs, the reality of it is when I observe it, because I partake just like you do, I get a kick out of it, but when I really sit back and look and I just observe, it's sad, man. I'm
so glad. Yeah, I'm really glad you brought that back around, because I was going to do it again.
It's very sad, bro.
You said, this thing about recognizing other people's pain, right? Like, and then I take that a step further. It's like, I think I've kind of there's always been that aspect to me where I can do that. I can recognize, like, even if
it's called empathy.
In the moment of like, oh, I'm getting enjoyment out of watching this, but I'm also like, whoa, this is like a person on the other end of this who's kind of suffering. And
it's called empathy.
It's weird to be enjoying that. And it's like, people need to be called out when they're behaving like fucking, dude, there's nothing wrong with that. But here's the thing, like, also taking responsibility for your role in creating that suffering. This is the thing that's really got me going lately, is like, dude, if there are this many women choosing to go down this path that is clearly miserable, that is clearly creating people that are irrational, right? This is a failure of men. This is a failure of men on a mass scale, because they're running to any alternative they can find for that, what they need, and men aren't providing what they need. We just need to, I think, as a whole, as a culture here, we need to understand that this is what's happening and take some goddamn responsibility for it. It's one thing to point and laugh. It's another to just say, whoa, that person exists over there because I let them down. That's my doing.
Let me, because this is okay. So I think what I was taught was that you can't do better unless you know better. And so sometimes when you talk about the accountability thing and stuff like this, I don't necessarily think people know better a lot of times, or they've spent so much time, because you can take a man and you can put him in jail, right, at an early age. And if you keep him there, long enough, he'll become institutionalized, meaning that even when you free him, it's kind of like Brooks was at the end of Shawshank Redemption.
Absolutely,
and that was the difference between
now you're
Brooks and
tapping
Red.
into it, man.
That's the difference between those two. Is Brooks was like, well, I can't deal with this, so they're not going to send me back. So I'm just coming up. Red was like, I'm not going back. I'm going forwards. And so you have, but again, you can't fault Brooks though. You know what I mean? Like you can't now. Now on the flip, and you got to fucking decipher all this fucking shit. It aggravates the piss out of me. But it doesn't mean that you, like you just what you said. It doesn't mean that you allow people to behave badly. That's not what it means. And I've had to deal with this a lot, man. Where it's like, but in a good friend of mine, Kevin, he basically was like, look, you can say whatever you want. You just have to come from a place of love. And it's tough, right? It's tough to tell another man, hey man, what you just did. And again, there's times, trust me, there's a time for all seasons. But ultimately, when you're talking about self-responsibility, it's hard to go to another man and say, listen, what you did, man, that hurt my feelings. And say it in a way that's not like, hey, bro, I want to tell you something. You hurt my fucking feelings, bro. You know what I mean? Like, as if I can't say it in any other way, because I got to let you know I am expressing my feelings. But if you try to fucking take advantage of them, I'm going to fucking hurt you. Like, that's, you can't, you know what I mean? Like, that's not the spiritual path. It's saying, look, my validation and my worth is not in what you think of me. Right. Correct. But I need to be honest and genuine and tell you that the thing you said over there and the thing you did, I didn't appreciate it. You know what I mean? Yeah. And because maybe you don't know. Maybe you don't know. And because that's my problem, is I'm always like, what the fuck is wrong with this motherfucker? My first question is, what are you, retarded, motherfucker? What you mean you don't know? You know what I mean? And all, and Kevin had to be like, you need to calm down. Just assume they don't know. And I'm like, fuck, bro. What am I? So I'm supposed to assume they fucking children? And he's like, yeah, that's exactly what you have.
I think so, man. Like, dude, that is like, no joke. Fuck. That is no joke. I consider myself, as a world, I mean, I think I'm not saying this is the same everywhere. I guess when I speak about where I am, what I know. That's the United States of America, okay? Mm-hmm. And it's like, we have done very well at producing adult children. We're fucking children, man. And I'm not pointing a finger at, I'm saying this guy right here, fucking adult child. Okay? I have not taken responsibility for being a man as I should. I have not taken responsibility for sustaining my own fucking life as I should. We are children, man. And that the sooner we just own it, and then we can move forward. But if we're going to keep denying it, like you said, we've been institutionalized. Yeah. Growing up in this culture, we've been institutionalized into a way of thinking, a way of being that is highly self-destructive, shirks responsibility at every chance it can. Dude, it's a problem. And I want to sell comics. I want to make comics. I understand that people are like, what the fuck does this have to do with me buying another comic book? Well, I got to tell you, it's like, there's no value in this for me if I'm not doing it from an authentic place. And for me to come on here and act like none of this is going on in my being, in my world, in my reality, it's like, it's not going to do me or anyone else any good. Right?
Absolutely. I listen, 100%. I don't know everything that you hear me saying. All my observations, all right, are I don't have to take anyone else's inventory. I don't have to inventory the world. I take my own inventory. So just basically go, look at this. And people are like, me too. I do that too. I don't have to know you. I just have to know me. And it's like, and we're way more similar than we are different. I mean, we really are. And so I agree. I think, like I said, at the end of the day, I think, it's tough, man. I mean, it is, because you're dealing with people who, unfortunately, they don't understand how institutionalized they are. They don't understand, the nature of that stuff. For myself, I don't know. I don't know. But as myself, I was brought up around a lot of older generation, right? So like, hold on one second.
No problem.
And so that influenced me. Like I was talking to my daddy the other day, when I was a little kid, I spent a lot of time with my grandpa, my daddy's daddy. And he's a World War II vet, grew up
Yeah.
poor as can be. You know what I mean? So, and I spent my first 10 years, I spent a lot of time with him, man. And you're around it. And it's funny, it's not that I absorbed any of that stuff like intellectually, I didn't. But because it was around me when I got to be grown, right? And I got out of being so fucking polluted that I could see, and then I started moving towards trying to be a better individual, a better person. I could understand now why the old timers did what they did, and that they too had their flaws, but they had been whittling this system down into what its bare essence was. That when we started to jettison all that stuff, right? We lost a connection to tradition. We lost a connection to these things. That what a patriarchy is. I mean, in essence, what you're seeing is it's like. And again, I hate the fact that we've moved into this realm of defining everything by its worst qualities. I find that to be fucking infuriating.
Yeah.
But that at the core of patriarchy is just you have the head of the household, which is the man. This is not a system that is created, right? Me and my dad had this conversation. I'll give you a good example. Like the idea that we socially engineered it that way in order to keep women down. It's so bizarre, bro. Yeah, because it's like, my dad was telling me. My dad was like, he's like, I was watching this program on wolves, and it's like, and he's talking about how the wolves are they take care of the sick and the old, and the alpha leads from here and all this kind of stuff, and it's like, wow, sounds like a family structure. The alpha's a male. He takes care of everyone. It's that and the other. It's like, you don't think maybe back in the day when we're tribal people, we're sitting there looking at these wolves going, wow, look at this system here. They run it. Wow, that sounds like a pretty good system. Maybe we should do that. Let's try it. It's this weird idea that, no, what we really did was said, look, guys, if we don't oppress these women, they're going to take over everything. And we need to fucking oppress them. So that needs to be my main goal in life. And it's like, I get excited because I'm like, I get very excited over this stuff sometimes simply because the fact that for us to have a serious, meaningful conversation, that has to be talked about. It's like, why is this even in this? Why do we even have to address the ridiculousness of this? Why is this even credible in any realm? That when we're sitting here talking about real stuff, real important things, deep down spiritual stuff, we have to preface it by like, okay, well, it's patriarchy. It's not this. It's not like it's completely ridiculous. But it's this familial social structure that there is the father figure, right? Yeah, who is to protect. And I loved Jordan Peterson's breakdown of it. Is that the patriarch and the father and the mother are a complete entity, and that especially when you get into raising children, it's like, okay, well, this is the theory behind it. Okay, is that you have the father who left unchecked will become the tyrant, and the mother who's left unchecked will become the devourer, and they basically keep each other from becoming a tyrant and from becoming a devourer, and that's what the child is exposed to. Is the firmness and the structure of the father, and the love and the compassion and the feeling of the mother. And it's that balance thing that if you subvert that, then it's not like you go, oh, well, you're bad. It's like, no, what they understood was if you subvert that, you run the risk of complete disaster more often than you will if you have them together. That doesn't mean if you have them together, there won't be a fucking disaster. That's not what it means. What it means is if you remove it like that, you have made yourself more susceptible to becoming a complete disaster. And I think that's where shit gets twisted, where it's like, no, I think patriarchies are good. Oh, you're for the oppression of women. It's like, no, that's not what the fuck. Like that ain't what I mean, dude.
You go ask a woman who's living the way that you're describing in a well-oiled mechanism of man and woman coming together and acknowledging their strengths and their weaknesses and doing it the right way. You go ask that woman if she thinks she's being oppressed. Have you ever? Did you ever? Like, they're not, dude. That's pure
Old
joy.
school
That's
women, bro.
joy, and I think
old school women are way different, bro. Way different.
I think there's this huge disconnect too. Is like, because we aren't connected to the land, because we're not responsible for, most people are not responsible for, like, we don't have fucking farm animals that we have to care for. We don't have that daily responsibility of this thing, this structure that we have to do. All the lessons you need to know about living here, being here, is living on the land. It's taught to you that way. And if you remove that from people's lives, then they have to come in contact with it via other ways, right? They have to be taught it from somebody, and it's not the same. When you learn something from life in a real way, it will never leave you. But if you're in a classroom and someone tries to teach you, it's not the same.
I think that's why the South is the way it is, right? So we kind of get this kind of patriarchy, type all this bullshit, but it's because, like, throwback systems are big in the South, right? What I mean by that is, like, hunting and fishing, huge in the South, bro, huge. Like, you are brought up, like, as a kid, going fishing and going hunting. I mean, I was like 5 or 6. I was young, right? Because by the time I was 7. They had me in the woods with a 410, with a shotgun.
There you go, right.
So look, when I was like 5, my grandpa would come home. I spent a lot of time with him. They'd come home from rabbit hunting and squirrel hunting, and they'd have the rabbits and the squirrels. And my job was to hold the legs. And I had to hold the legs while they skinned them. They skinned the squirrel, pull the guts out, feed the liver to the dogs and shit, make sure the dogs don't eat the stomach content. You know what I mean? And so as an early age, I was exposed to that. And then, it was like, then it was a rite of passage. Yeah. And I'm going to segue into this. It was a rite of passage to then be old enough to have a gun and go into the woods, and then it was a rite of passage when you were old enough to go into the woods by yourself. Go and hunt by yourself. And then they would, you would go out there on your own and stuff like this. I heard this great story, and I think that when you accept poor arguments, I heard who was it? Joseph Campbell, the guy who wrote A Hero with a Thousand Faces. He told this story, and it was a cool story because it highlights what you're talking about. In the youth, is he said that there was this tribe, and when the children got to be about 13 or so, when they started to become unruly, basically, it's wanting to sow their oats. You get to be, you're not a kid anymore. You know what I mean? You got a little facial hair. You start thinking I'm grown and shit. And so he said they would have these ceremonies where the men would dress up with these masks, and the masks represented the gods, and they would dance around and shit. And he said, so when the child got to be to that age, what would happen is they would come in at the dead of night, and they would snatch him out of the bed, all of them wearing the masks and shit, and they would throw him into the circle, and he would have to fight one of the men, and the man would let him beat him. And then when he beat him, he'd take the mask off to show him he's just a man. And then he'd hand him the mask as, now you are a part of this tradition. You are now responsible to behave as a man in this way. And these are the responsibilities of the man. And so when you don't have that, you know what I mean? Like, it's like you don't have that. And there's a real thing that misses on all that stuff.
Agreed. Yeah. And the value of what you probably learned being out there at a young age, doing that, fishing, hunting, not just from the people around you, but from just the act of being and doing it. Like, the world around you is teaching you all the time. But the problem is we're so isolated from the world, the natural world. Most of the time, we're not getting those lessons. We're never getting the lessons we need, the lessons that make us understand what life is, that it is a brutal but beautiful place to be. But if you reject the brutality that is inherent in life, and you're trying to hide from it all the time, you want it sterilized from your existence, right? Like a vegan,
I think, right?
Like a vegan doesn't want to accept that death is going to happen on any level, and it's like, fuck off.
I think what happens is that the brutality aspect of it. I think what the problem is that the brutality is a part of life, and I don't think that we should necessarily be okay with it, right? and I don't think that's the problem. I think that, you know, you want to keep things from becoming too brutal. However, I think the problem is the trying to deny it as if it's not a part of the system, and subvert it in a way that you're trying to eliminate it. But by eliminating it, you're suppressing something that it's an energy. You're not going to suppress that. And if you try to, it will cause a backlash somewhere else, dude.
Exactly. And this is funny. and it creates people with a very warped view of the world. If you try to basically you take a scalpel and cut out all the bad, all the harshness of it, the lessons live in those realities, in those things. You cut all that stuff out and you're left with a simpering mass of helplessness. People that cannot, they don't know up from down. You could tell them anything. You could tell them this invisible thing is coming to kill them and you better wear your fucking diapers on your faces, and they'll do it because they don't have any concept of what life is. No, that's a problem.
Well, this is to me, because you're trying to sterilize life, and I think that's the problem. And I always use live birth as an example. Like it's not fucking like look, man. The sentiment is beautiful. It doesn't look beautiful. I don't care anyway. Oh, that's so beautiful. It's like the chick's shitting on the floor. There's fucking the pussy stretching. There's blood and shit every fight. It's not fucking beautiful. I mean, it's beautiful that life is coming into the world, right?
Yeah, right.
But it's like, nah, nigga, this ain't beautiful. It's messy. It's ugly. However, what it produces life. Now, imagine if you tried to just go, well, this is an ugly scene. This is terrible. I want to cut this all out. I don't want to see this anymore. Let's get rid of it.
Exactly.
It's like, so what now? So let's start growing babies in test tubes, right? So that's your solution. So I don't have to see the brutality of childbirth. Correct. Because some mothers die in childbirth. Let's get rid of that. Let's make it so no women ever die in childbirth. How we're going to do that? We're going to start having babies in test tubes. That's a solution. However, that is a terrible, dangerous. I don't want any part of it. Maybe I'm just old fashioned.
No, I 100% agree.
I don't want any part of that.
You know, man, what would be lost?
You're losing
that
something.
Process, that connection to the mother, whatever it is, man, all that shit that goes on. You're losing it. It's gone, and it might not be readily available or apparent to you what is lost until a few generations down the road, and you're like, "Who are these empty, soulless fucking people walking around?"
Diapers on their face.
Exactly. This is the thing, man. Just look around you. People, just look around. See the people. One thing I will say about all this is become very easy to know who I want to engage and who I don't need to engage out there. When I go out there and I see people just 100% like on board with all of this, shut down all the businesses, put masks on your children, don't isolate in your home. People that are doing that, I don't need to. Cool, you do your thing. I don't need to engage you. And then when I see the people who aren't doing it, dude, I should probably get to know you. Let's know each other and be on each other's radar, because you at least got something going on, you know. So it's making that very easy to know who to engage and not engage, like who to invest your time into.
It's very scary to me because I can't. And I mean, I talked with my friend. I talked to him. I said, you know, I can't distinguish the difference between the Kool-Aid drinkers and the Kool-Aid makers, and I don't, you know, I'm scared. I fear both, right? Because they're, you know, the drinker can be dangerous because, you know, it's and I'm going to use this because I like to use visuals. I really do. Maybe it's the artist in me. I don't know, but it's like the Matrix, right? People who are still plugged in the Matrix are dangerous. They're still dangerous. They can still hurt you, man.
Right.
But I don't have as much animus towards them as I do makers. People who are doing these things intentionally.
Correct.
That is the enemy. That's who you want to get your hands on, that person, because these other people, man, are just sleeping, right?
Dude,
they don't know any better.
Yeah.
And it's,
well, there's but they're varying. Like you got to add in this layer for that to really hit home with what we're dealing with. If you're talking about the Matrix, man, it always comes when you have a philosophical conversation. I challenge anyone not to have the Matrix come in at least once. It's fucking impossible. Anyway, so like you've got people who are plugged into the Matrix but have no idea that there is a thing. called the Matrix, right?
Correct.
They're completely innocent, honestly. They have no idea. The problem is we're living in a world with people who damn well fucking know the Matrix is there, and they're gonna pretend it isn't.
That's makers.
That's the sickness. That's the
makers.
problem. When you got people putting the mask on and they know COVID is bullshit, that person's in a world of hurt, man, and I want nothing to do with them.
And I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong on that. I don't know because I think about it, and because when I say makers, man, I mean like the people who are intentionally stirring the pot, who are
I get that. Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
I don't know. Like the ones who know that it's fake and go along with it. I initially want to give them the benefit of the doubt and say you're going along with that because you're afraid. Correct. But I'll drag it back down into it because you don't have any spirituality, because you don't have any God, or
morality. I agree.
Spirituality.
But I think they are linked.
Let me say this. Because I think we're saying the same things. Let me just say this, because let me simplify this. That when I say someone who has spirituality or has God, I don't mean in word. Okay, I mean in actual practice and actual belief, that they really believe that there's a God, and they believe that in the spirituality of things. So morals is packed into that. It's impossible to believe in God. It's impossible to serve two masters. You can't do both. Not without some point there being you have to reconcile that. There's a reckoning, and somewhere it's coming. So when I say that thing, that's what I'm talking about. What I'm saying is that people who don't have a connection to anything spiritual are dangerous, because they're like an animal that hasn't been fed. They are very dangerous, and they will fucking attack you, because imagine you have a spiritual side, right? But you never feed. It's starved. It's ravenous. It's like if you starve an animal, it becomes fucking wild and fucking totally unpredictable. So if you spiritually starve yourself, what happens is, and that's why I do believe this is why people latch on to feminism and all these things, because it almost, like, being spiritually starved creates a psychosis, bro. And what happens is you need to grab onto something to have some value in your life, some meaning. What does it all mean? You can't escape that question. Right. What does it mean? What am I doing? I'm wasting away. Wait a minute. Here's a cause I can get behind. Now, what they don't understand, this is like a whole nother topic, is that activism has become the new religion, or it's become the new fucking opiate to the godless. Right. Yeah. So the godless attach themselves to this fucking activism. Right. And what's crazy about it is it's a self-sustaining system. So it forever perpetuating forwards, because if you're an activist and you go, hey, I want to go fix these bridges because they're in terrible condition, someone could die, right? Well, then the objective, ultimately, if you're a good person and you're on the right path, is to get out of a job. So the bridges are fixed and there's nothing left for you to do. However, if you don't have any kind of God or anything, the power of going and making something change in the world, and then it's not there anymore. You have nothing left. And it's like, I need another hit, baby. You know what? Those bridges are messed up over there. And the reason they're messed up is because those guys over there don't do what they're supposed to be doing. So let's forget about the bridges because they're messed up. But what we need to do is we need to attack the guys who make them messed up, who are smoking cigarettes too close to the bridge, and it's causing it to rust and oxidize. So really, we need to go after cigarettes. And it's just forever. Yeah. And there is you're not looking, because it's not about a solution. It's about me. It's about how it makes me feel. And I need that dope. I need that fucking hit. I need that crack. Right. I need that fucking hit in order to feel okay.
Yeah. And see this a lot. It becomes if we're talking SJW front activism, it's like, you can see the addiction forming for people. Like, who's the next target? Who can we take down next? It's not about you know damn well it's not about
No, it's
doing real
narcissism.
good in the world. It's about that
It's
dopamine hit,
internal.
filling that
It's
empty space. And
selfish and
man,
self-centered, brother.
yeah, it's crazy shit. I do
I
want to
only know
say,
that because I was. I only everything you hear me saying is because I had to do my own inventory.
I know,
And I'm
man.
looking at myself going, God
That's
damn, you
I
son
want
of
to
a
make
bitch.
that yeah abundantly clear as well. All this stuff I'm talking about, it's because I'm
I've
sitting here
been there,
knowing
man.
I'm failing. I'm failing myself. I'm failing the people in my life. I'm not stepping up the way I need to as a man in this world, and I get that. I'm aware of it, and I'm trying to course correct. And I do want to. We've been going for a little over an hour now, and I do want to say, like, I get, this is hard hitting, tough topics we're going into. I've probably been doing that a little too much lately on this channel because I'm wrestling with this shit. But I do want to I'm gonna restructure things a little bit. I want there to be clearly defined, like, when you come to this show, you know what you kind of gonna get, So I need to find better ways of defining that, and maybe do some other shows like we can have these talks over here, and then we'll do the more fun stuff over here.
It's
Like,
probably
people
better
should
you
know
do
what they're
something
getting
like that.
into, you
Right.
know. So that's I need to clean up what I'm doing with the channel. But I appreciate people like putting up with this shit as I go through it, and maybe it's interesting for people to see somebody like hitting on these questions and wrestling with shit, maybe
It's
maybe
serious
that's
questions, brother.
yeah. But man, I'm really happy that I was able to meet you. I'm glad we came together. I really
No
like having
coincidences, bro.
conversations with you, man. It means a lot to me. It's
Thank
there's
you,
a
man.
lot of
I
value in
appreciate
it.
that. I'll tell my sponsor. It's
And folks, I know God's hand is it's no longer in demand. But folks, I've got links to Anthony Figueroa on Twitter. I've got a link to his official website. Be sure to check those things out and follow him if you're not. Um, are you doing the thing on YouTube? Do you have a channel too?
I'm getting ready to. I'm
Okay.
getting ready to crank that up. That's why I need you to get an intro for me, bro. It's
Oh, right,
look me up
man.
an
Yeah,
intro,
yeah. Hit
baby.
me
You
up.
know what I mean?
Let's
I
get
need
it
one
done,
of
dude.
I need one of them ride intros, boy.
Yeah.
Man.
Drop me. Let's talk about it, man. Maybe a little bit after the show, we'll talk about it.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're
So,
right.
dude, thanks for engaging this. I know you kind of have a busy
Anytime.
day, and
Anytime.
thanks to the chat for hanging out, putting up with
Yeah,
my
thank
shit.
you for putting up with this blabbering fucking shit. Yeah, Jesus.
The rest of the week, we're gonna have a good time, man. I think we're gonna to drop a Pictionary this Friday. We're gonna have fun with that. But the rest of the week shows, we're gonna focus on having a great time.
Yeah, you're
Thanks for
right.
being here, everybody, and